Okay, welcome back to the Three Princes of Serendip. This is chapter 4, and it's called The Sorry Quarrel. So far, these princes, they were sent away from their homeland of Serendip to find a formula that's called Death to Dragons, and if they find it, they believe they can make the waters around their homeland of Serendip free from sea monsters, these dragons that have been troubling them for quite some time. Their father's ill at home and sending letters by messenger to them. They've met several people on the way, and they're currently in service to the Emperor of Persia, whose name is Vahram. He is sending them away on a mission to bring back the Mirror of Justice. In order to do that, they're going to have to save a queen in India from this hand that comes out of the ocean and scoops villagers up unless they shine the Mirror of Justice upon it, and then it will just slink back into the sea. But they've got to rid her of that evil before they can bring the Mirror of Justice back to Emperor Vahram. So there's a lot going on in the tale, and we've only finished 3 chapters. But here we go with chapter 4, The Sorry Quarrel. And this is a version of an old folk tale that has been written now by Elizabeth... goodness gracious, Elizabeth Jamison Hodges. All right, so The Sorry Quarrel. Early one morning, the 3 princes waited upon the emperor in the great hall of silvered columns in order to take their leave. "My noble friends," the emperor said, "your coming to say farewell is indeed courteous, but since it is for us you are setting forth, I myself shall accompany you as far as Kuhabad. Thus, if only for a little time, we may postpone farewells." Therefore Vahram, with a host of officers and other nobles in his suite, mounted his charger and accompanied the princes as far as the mountain village where once, not long before, the 3 brothers had been guests at a wedding. Here, while men and women, boys and girls, eagerly sought a glimpse of the emperor's party, musicians on their harps and flutes played tunes of parting. Then Vahram bade adieu to the 3 young men. "My heart goes with you on your daring essay against the fearsome hand," he said, "and I look hopefully for your return." The youngest brother, Rajasingha, replied with equal courtesy, "Sir, if in venturing thus we may in some small measure be of service to you, it will be to our joy and high delight." After every farewell had been said, the emperor watched the departure of the 3 brothers until at last they disappeared around a sudden curve of the mountain road. Then he rode about to see the farms and houses of his people in this place and to learn if they were well and happy. Vahram watched the farmers cutting hay for their animals and storing it close to their homes in the village. He also admired the handiwork of the women, whose woven baskets, rugs, and shawls were displayed in the marketplace. And finally he reached the temple with its brilliant fire, which burned by day and by night. Here he dismounted, and before returning to Bishapur, prayed for the success of the 3 young men who had just set out for India. It was later, while the emperor was returning to the capital, that the imperial party overtook an especially large caravan of traders. They were riding upon camels with bells that could be heard a long way off. Having sent Zamis, his grand keeper of the royal orders, to make inquiries of the merchant in charge, Vahram learned that the travelers came from the distant east, bringing with them a great number of rare and curious treasures. Since he delighted in all that was strange and elegant, the emperor asked that these articles be conveyed into the courtyard of the palace, where in comfort he might inspect them. Soon, therefore, he repaired thither with his courtiers to see what the caravan had brought. As the bright and colorful objects were spread out, Vahram was delighted. He saw bowls shaped like delicate flowers, velvets as fine as the down on butterfly wings, and ornaments which sparkled like sunshine dancing on a mountain lake. Yet all of these seemed plain and of little worth after he had observed the beauty of a young woman who appeared for a few moments in the courtyard and spoke to the merchant. He saw that she was slender and lithe as a young peach tree. Her hair falling to her shoulders shone like polished jet. Her eyes, in the shape of almonds, were as dark as a mine of rarest gems, and her lips seemed like fragments of a rosy cloud. The emperor was so enchanted with this lovely being that he asked Zamis to find out all he could about her. "She is called Deliramma," this officer reported. "But the leader of the caravan can say little of her origin, save that he found her as an infant near a forest of a distant kingdom in the land of India. He has since taken care of her as a foster father." When Vahram heard this, he commanded the merchant to be brought before him and inquired more closely into the matter. "Your Imperial Majesty," I'll give you a picture before we move on here. This is the lovely slender woman with the eyes like almonds and lips like the petals of a rose. Isn't she lovely? Okay, when Vahram heard this, he commanded the merchant to be brought before him and inquired more closely into the matter. "Your Imperial Majesty," the man said, bowing low, "although I have asked my questions everywhere, nowhere have I found an answer to the mystery. My conjecture, sir, is that she was stolen for ransom and that the abductors lost their courage and abandoned the child at the edge of the forest. There, traveling along, I happened to find her." "If ransom was the original object," Vahram said, "surely she belonged to a family of more than a humble station. How was she clothed when you first saw her?" "That I can more easily show than tell," the merchant said. He opened a box and brought forth a length of silk, soft blue in color. "With this the child was clothed," he said. Then he clapped, and the young woman appeared again. Taking her by the hand, he led her before the emperor and showed Vahram a chain of tiny links in the shape of crowns, which she wore around her arm. "When I found her as an infant," said the merchant, "she was wearing this as a necklace. Now too small for that purpose, it serves as a bracelet. I cannot guess whose daughter she is," the emperor said, "but that these were the belongings of an infant nobly born, I have no doubt." "With this, Your Imperial Majesty, I can only agree," the foster father said, "but when I found the child, she was too young to speak, nor growing up could she remember aught to tell us of her past. Only the tunes she sings suggest that she may have heard in her former days some songs we never knew." The emperor then desired that she be asked to sing. To this she readily consented, and so melodious was her voice, so artless in her manner, that Vahram was moved to offer her the protection of his own household. This he told her foster father. For a few moments the merchant was silent. The emperor, concluding that only with deep reluctance would the man part with Deliramma, said this: "As her foster father, it would be your privilege to see her again whenever you returned this way." At this the merchant said, "Your Imperial Majesty, that would be a consolation. It is not easy to part with one who, like a true daughter, has long been dear to me. Moved, however, by thinking of her future and your Majesty's generous thought for me, I accept your offer." Thus he bowed to the emperor's wish. In the days that followed, Deliramma, although unused to life in a palace, soon gained many of the courtly skills. Being young and strong, she learned how to ride a horse. Besides this, she quickly became accustomed to the wearing of jewels and handsome clothes. In her speech, however, the fair young lady seemed a little strange in her new surroundings. Long used to the joking and easy talk of a caravan company, her words were sometimes rather free. One day, when she was chatting with the other ladies of the court, the Princess Purandocht joined the gathering. Now remember, Princess Purandocht is now promised to the middle brother Vijayo, just as an aside. "See the necklace of white jade which His Imperial Majesty bought from the merchant for me," she said, holding up her shapely chin so that the gift could be admired. "How like the early blossoms of a pear tree," said one of the ladies. "As delicate as a spider's thread in the moonlight," said another. "Like the sweet notes of songs your Imperial Highness sings," said a third. In a similar vein, each of the ladies spoke with high praise of the Emperor's gift, until at last it was the turn of Deliramma. Many were the treasures she had seen in the merchant's caravan, so she said simply, "It becomes your Highness well, but I have often seen much finer." A sudden hush fell on the circle of ladies. Astonished by her words, they all sensed a pounding in their hearts, but they heard only the hum of a bee, which had flown into the room from the courtyard garden. As for the princess, although at first she looked dazed with surprise, she soon showed that she had a merry heart. She laughed and said, "Well now, I know what you think." Thus the moment passed, but when she had left the company, the other ladies crowded about Deliramma. "How could you speak so to the princess?" said one. "In a palace, one's tongue must ever be under heavy guard," said another. "Each word spoken before our ruling family should be clothed in silk to rustle on its way," counseled a third. Not a little distressed, Deliramma resolved to be more cautious, but she remained in constant danger of making mistakes. Now, as time went by, it happened that very often the Emperor asked Deliramma for a song. When she sang, he listened with rapt delight. Indeed, he was so charmed by her voice, as well as her beauty, that he said to her many tender things. Happy in her company, Vahram came to find that he could ill bear any day in which he failed to see her, and even went so far as to invite her to accompany him on a hunt. When she accepted with a smile of delight, he instantly gave commands for all to be arranged. On the appointed day, a large number of imperial retainers were awake, and up long before the dawn. Mounted upon elephants, they rode through the forest, gradually driving a great many lions, wild asses, boars, and a deer into a vast enclosed park. It was in the woods and marshland here that the emperor liked to hunt. When all was in readiness, Vahram, Deliramma, and a notable company of courtiers set out on horses. The imperial party was preceded by 21 musicians, who, taking their places in a stand, prepared for them in the park, could be heard playing lively and encouraging music when the emperor and his guests arrived. Very soon, Vahram spotted a handsome stag, some distance off beyond the marshy river. It pleased his fancy to pursue this particular deer, so he ordered 2 barges, one of medium size for Deliramma, and a large one for himself. After they and the oarsmen were aboard, a harpist entered each of the boats. They would play for the passengers until such time as the emperor might order all music to be hushed, lest it frighten away the quarry. While the 2 boats glided near each other across the river, and merry tunes were sounding in the air, Deliramma said to the emperor, "Pray, sir, let me see if with a single arrow you're able to hit yonder stag on one ear and on one hind foot, both at the same time." For a moment the emperor looked puzzled. Then, asking that the music be stilled, he stood up where he was in the imperial barge, and took in his hands the bow which had been slung about his neck. After drawing an arrow from a quiver held by one of his men, he took aim with precise care before he shot. Flying very straight, the arrow touched some fur on the tip of the deer's left ear. Immediately, the stag, as he might have done if tickled by a branch or annoyed by a bee, raised his left hind foot and brushed his ear with it. Seizing this instant, the emperor shot a second arrow. Neatly, it glanced off the creature's lifted hoof and grazed his ear at the same time. While the startled animal ran away, the courtiers observing Vahram's feat not only cheered him, but also put out in small boats to join their ruler. "The skill of your majesty," said one, "is as marvelous as music. Your Majesty's arrow, said another, flew to its mark as surely as a bird to its nest. Never before, said a third, have we seen a stratagem so clever. Soon around the emperor there was a great hubbub of congratulations, as all the boats bearing his courtiers drew near the imperial barge. Highly pleased with himself, Vahram turned to Deliramma. Well, well, my dear, he said, I have listened long enough to these others. Pray, what have you to say? Now the young lady had found the emperor's feat amusing as well as clever, so she laughed lightly, and then, without thinking, began to joke. Really now, she said, there was nothing so remarkable in what you did. Anyone could have done as well had he only known the trick. A clap of silence fell upon the company. No one spoke. The courtiers heard only the sound of a little water dripping from a raised oar, and the quack of a wild duck flying high above them. Vahram was shocked and wounded, especially so because Deliramma's laughter and the strange words had been uttered in front of many of his courtiers. Hot anger rose within him, and overpowered by rage, words caught in his throat. Finally, even though deep within him he loved Deliramma, his fury swelled to such a peak that he gasped, Take her away! Take her far away! Remove her silken cloak and precious jewels. Let her be driven into the darkest forest and there be devoured by beasts. Oh my goodness, he really got mad. This is not good for Deliramma. Then he had himself rode back to the land, mounted his horse, and sped at a gallop along the mountain road to his palace. As he did so, a storm broke over his head, but he scarcely noticed the lightning which zigzagged across the sky, nor the soaking rain which followed. As for Deliramma, the guards removed her cloak and jewels. These sparkled fitfully as sudden streaks of light brightened the stormy sky. Making her leave the boat in which she had been seated, the men drove her through the watery marshland, out of the hunting park, and alone and unarmed into the darkest part of the forest. There they left her while a heavy rain beat down about her head. In the palace of the emperor it was very quiet. Vahram shut himself up in his own apartments, and everyone walked softly. Someone whispered, "She's an ungrateful girl, for the emperor loved her. Besides, no one must be allowed to laugh at our ruler." Another said simply, "Our emperor must be very sad because Deliramma is beautiful, and because he loved her." And Vahram, once his first fierce anger had abated, became suddenly uneasy. He thought a moment, and then as quickly as before he acted. Flinging open his doors, he gave commands in a voice as sharp as lightning, as urgent as thunder. To the guards of the palace and to those who had driven Deliramma away, he gave new instructions. "Hurry to the north and south. Hurry to the east and west. If need be, turn my entire empire upside down. But find fair Deliramma. Even at this moment, a lion may be at her throat. I cannot bear to have her suffer. I cannot bear to have her gone." So the guards rode off in search, and the anxious emperor walked back and forth as he waited for news of his missing love. When it came time to eat, Vahram's face was long and sorrowful. The imperial cooks had prepared all of his favorite foods, but he tasted only a little rose-petal pilau and called for some pussy willow broth. Every few moments he stood up and looked out to see if anyone was coming back with Deliramma, but none of the guards could find her. The search continued for many days, crashing through the forests on elephants and racing along the imperial roads on horses. The men pursued every rumor of where she might be. Unfortunately, the rain had washed away her footprints, and each disappointment was followed by another. At last, grieving deeply, the emperor gave up hope and became ill with unhappiness. He stopped going out of doors, and because Deliramma was not there to sing, he would not allow music within his palace. Although many noted doctors came to see him and consulted daily with each other, none of their herbs and other medicines seemed to improve his pitiful condition. Finally, he decided to put all these aside and await the return and advice of his 3 young friends who had gone to recover the Mirror of Justice. The sister of the emperor was usually as cheerful as the sound of a brook of cool water. But now the hours for her were not only lonely with Vijayo away, but empty of pleasure with her brother so ill. To pass the time, as she also waited for the return of the three young men, she composed this sad song, which she dared to recite only in whispers. I'll try to sing this in whispers as if I were a woman. This is not going to be easy, but this is the pantoum for an emperor. The heart of every hour dies as swiftly as young lions bound, and while our Emperor Vahram sighs, till Deliramma can be found. As swiftly a young lion bounds, his palace guards pursue the quest, till Deliramma can be found, between the endless east and west. His palace guards pursue the quest. Oh no! And while our Emperor Vahram sighs, between the endless east and west, the heart of every hour dies. Well, the sadness of the song was exceeded only by the sadness of my singing. Here are the words to the song. I'll bet you can sing it much prettier than I do, just in case you want to give it a shot. But that is the end of chapter 4. And chapter 5 is going to be called The Dangerous Demon. Oh my goodness, it's getting to be a bit of a troubling story. And, well, I can only tell you that I know how it ends, and it gets much happier before the end, okay? But I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. For now, let's just say a prayer for Deliramma out there in the wilderness alone, and a prayer for Vahram, that he might find forgiveness for himself in his heart, and that he might never give up hope of finding her. And a prayer for the three princes, that they might be successful in overcoming the fearsome hand. And a prayer for the Queen of India, that she might be kind enough, once they have done so, to return the mirror of justice to them, that they might bring it back to Emperor Vahram. And one other prayer for King Vijayo, that he might remain in good enough health for his three princes to return with the formula for death to dragons at some point in the future. My goodness, there are a lot of things to pray for in this story right now, but we're not even halfway through. So take heart, sleep well, and have a wonderful tomorrow.